Some ghosts scream. Some ghosts hide, but in Surabaya, there's a boy who just keeps working. The story begins in a mid-sized private hospital just outside Surabaya's city center. It was built in 1978, expanded twice over the years, but never properly renovated. Staff who have worked there for decades will tell you that certain corridors always feel colder than the rest of the building, especially the long, dimly lit hallway leading to the mortuary. And that's where you'd see him, Ryan, a quiet, thin boy, no older than 13. He was always barefoot, his small feet padding silently on the cold linoleum floors, and he was always humming, a soft, tuneless melody that seemed to hang in the air long after he'd passed. His job was a grim one. He'd push the trolleys, the ones with the still sheet-covered forms, down to the freezer room in the basement. He did it without question, without pause, his face a mask of concentration. The other hospital workers felt a strange pity for him. They'd watch him go about his work, but they never asked where his parents were. They never questioned why a child was tasked with the hospital's most somber duty. It was just the way things were. Ryan was the mortuary boy. Then came the night of the storm. It was 1999, just before the Eid al-Fitr holiday. A ferocious storm descended upon Surabaya, turning the streets into rivers and knocking out the city's power grid. The hospital was plunged into darkness. The backup generator sputtered, coughed, and died. In the chaos, a woman passed away on one of the upper floors. Her body needed to be moved to the mortuary, but the adult staff refused. They were afraid of the dark, of navigating the flooded corridors, of what might be waiting in the unlit basement. That's when Ryan stepped forward. He volunteered. Without a word, he took hold of the heavy trolley and began pushing it into the blackness. The only sound was the squeak of the wheels and his humming, which seemed louder now, echoing down the empty halls. The other staff waited, huddled together with flashlights. A few hours later, the power flickered back on. They rushed to check on the situation. They found the trolley, parked perfectly right outside the mortuary doors. The deceased woman was secure, but Ryan was gone. The police were called in. They conducted a massive search of the old hospital. They swept through every corridor, checked every locked room, scoured the drainage systems, and even climbed to the rooftops. There was no sign of him. They found absolutely nothing. Frustrated, they turned to the hospital's security camera footage. The grainy tape from the night of the storm showed a chilling sequence of events. First, you see Ryan, a small, determined figure, pushing the heavy trolley through the darkness. As he approaches the mortuary, the heavy steel door swings open on its own. Ryan doesn't hesitate. He steps inside, pulling the trolley with him. And then, the video feed cuts to static. But just before it does, for a single, terrifying frame, you can see something else. A hand, pale and thin, reaching out from inside the mortuary, pulling something or someone in. The official search was called off, but the stories had just begun. The people of Surabaya gave the boy a new name, Anak Jenazah, the mortuary boy. After the hospital fully reopened, strange things started happening. Nurses working the late shift reported hearing the distinct sound of trolley wheels rolling down the corridor around midnight. Others heard soft humming coming from the direction of the now empty freezer rooms. On freshly mopped floors, they'd find trails of small, bare footprints leading to the mortuary door, only to vanish. Freezer doors, heavy and secure, would be found slightly ajar in the morning, with no sign of forced entry. But the ghost of the mortuary boy was never violent. He wasn't malicious. In a way, he was still just working. If a body arrived late at night and the orderlies were delayed, the staff would find the trolley already waiting by the mortuary doors. If a deceased patient was left unattended in a hallway for too long, they'd later discover the body had been moved, escorted respectfully to its final stop. It was almost as if he was still on duty, finishing the jobs that others left behind. His presence was a quiet, constant, and professional one. The legend grew over the years, becoming a whispered tale among medical staff across the region. In 2018, the old hospital, now semi-retired, was being used for medical research and training. A group of students was granted permission to stay overnight for a project. The group was a mix of cultures and disciplines: an Indonesian pathology intern, an Indian forensic medical student, an American anthropology student fascinated by local folklore, and a local Indonesian nurse trainee who had heard the stories her whole life. Driven by a mix of academic curiosity and youthful bravado, they decided to explore the infamous mortuary. Armed with cameras and voice recorders, they made their way down to the cold basement. At first, there was nothing but silence and the low hum of the building's electricity. Then, they heard it, the soft, melodic humming that the legends described. It seemed to come from all around them. Then came another sound. Squeak, roll. The slow, steady metallic sound of trolley wheels on tile. They froze, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, but the corridor was empty. The sound grew closer. The American student filming everything glanced at her camera's small LCD screen, and she screamed. In the viewfinder, a boy had appeared. A thin, barefoot boy, visible only through the lens of the camera. He was pushing a trolley towards them, and as he got closer, they all saw it on the screen. The sheet covering the body on the trolley moved, a single, distinct shift. That was it. Panic erupted. The students dropped their equipment and ran. scrambling over each other to get out of the basement and away from the mortuary boy. Months later, one of them, the Indonesian pathology intern, couldn't let it go. The experience had shaken him, but his scientific mind needed answers. He returned to Surabaya, not to the hospital, but to the city archives. He was determined to validate the legend, to find some proof that Rian had actually existed. He spent weeks digging through old, dusty hospital records. He searched the HR files for any employee named Rian from that time period. There was nothing. No hiring paperwork, no employee file, no payroll records. It was as if he'd never officially worked there at all. Defeated, he was about to give up when he decided to check one last place. The patient death records from 1999. And there in faded ink on a yellowed page, he found it. One entry stood out, named Rian, age 13. Cause of death, complications from terminal pneumonia. Date of death, the very same night of the powerful storm. His body had been transferred from his room 13, to the mortuary. The truth was heavier than any ghost story. Rian was never a worker, he was never hired. He was a patient, a dying child who spent his final days in that hospital. But someone, for some unknown and cruel reason, had assigned him the duty of a mortician. A responsibility he took so seriously he carried it with him, even beyond death. In Indonesian folklore, there's a strong belief that spirits who are tied to unfinished obligations rarely find peace. Some scream for revenge, lashing out at the living, but Rian doesn't scream. His duty was never officially completed. His shift never truly ended. He's still just trying to finish his work. Hauntings aren't always about hatred or anger. Sometimes, they're about routine. A routine so deeply ingrained, not even death can break it. If you ever find yourself in that old Surabaya hospital late at night and hear the distant squeak of wheels, don't be afraid. It's just a mortuary boy. Someone has to take them home. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more unexplained mysteries from around the world.